Representative Paulsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Dr. Zavadny, I was just going to note that at the end of your testimony, too, just to follow up on this, you mentioned and talked about short-term migration instead of permanent residency. And you said creating a program that allows immigrants who remain employed in the U.S. for a certain period while on a temporary visas to opt to adjust to permanent residence would be better than granting permanent residence to many immigrants from the outset. Can you just maybe expand a little bit more about that? I mean, what would some of the benefits be from an economic standpoint of looking at the issue in that context?
So the concern is that if people come, and in particular if they're not admitted because they already have a job offer from a U.S. employer, how valuable are they going to be in the U.S. labor market in terms of will they have the skills that employers need? Will there be a good match between them and employers? And so there's no way for a bureaucrat to tell this. There's no way for a point system really to tell this. It's up to the employer to know whether or not an immigrant looks like he or she's going to be a good match. And so when you grant permanent residents the right to live here forever, in essence, unless you commit a felony, from the outset, without knowing how well someone is going to adapt here and how much they're going to contribute as a citizen, as a taxpayer to the economy, and so on, perhaps the U.S. is unusually generous in how much permanent residence it gives, that we are an enormous outlier worldwide in terms of the generosity of our immigration policy. It's something to be proud of, but on the other hand, it's not prioritizing economic growth.
Now, my understanding, and I don't know if I missed this at the beginning when the chairman was asking questions, but Canada is testing a pilot program right now that would make available immediate permanent residency to anyone who gets sponsored by a Canadian venture capital firm or angel investor. And it would seem that their target market there is obviously IT specialists in STEM fields, maybe those in the United States that have only a limited amount of time to stay here on a temporary work visa. But can you give your thoughts on that program, if a similar program could work in the U.S.? Again, that's permanent residency right away.
So I think there are some groups to whom you would want to give permanent residency right away, and that would be those of extraordinary ability, say PhD holders, STEM graduates of U.S. colleges and universities, workers like that. But to grant it almost across the board, to over a million people a year is unbelievably generous.
And do you have a sense, is there any brain drain going on right now within the United States, either among natives or immigrants, just because of our policies here or the attraction that might exist in some of these programs with other countries?
Right. I think Vivek Wadhwa is the biggest expert on this, and what his research shows is that we are seeing a brain drain of people who come here and leave, both immigrants and then some U.S. natives, going in particular to China and India, which have experienced booming economic growth and significant opportunities, particularly in the high-tech sector, and that our immigration policy is certainly not helping us here, it's hindering us.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.